or this evening, I want to talk to you a little bit about UBarU wildlife. And I also want to talk about camera trapping. I'm really excited. UBarU has a brand new camera trap, and we're going to put it to great use. And so I think it's really good for you to know a little bit about the history of camera trapping. Um, so the first cameras to capture wildlife free from human presence were used in the late 1890s by photographer pioneer George Shiras, who employed tripwires and a flash bulb to capture animals on film. The photos were eventually published in National Geographic magazine. I think that's stunning. So the image on the right, he has another technique where he got into a canoe and he had his camera and a flashlight, and he was able to capture images that way as well. So these are some of his very first images that he captured. The first one, the one on the left, the hare, that was like one of the very first ones. And the ones on the right of the deer, that came a little bit later, but I just think they're amazing. The first purely scientific use of camera traps was in 1920s when Frank M. Chapman surveyed the big species of Barrio, Colorado Island in Panama using tripwire camera traps. And camera traps have just come a long way. And we'll talk a little bit about how the technology has changed. But I want to just share with you as a researcher, what are some of the things that people use camera traps for? So we use them for surveying rare species. Camera traps have been used to record the presence of rare or elusive species, determine habitat requirements, and document geographical range. So these are really rare gorillas. They're called cross river gorillas. And it would really be unethical to habituate these animals. There is so much bushmeat industry in this part of the world that researchers don't even try to habituate them. But using camera traps, we've gotten a lot of information about them. The other thing we're able to do is assess human populations. So I'm going to talk about primates because that's my area of interest. Many primates are in danger of extinction from habitat destruction, illegal wildlife trade, commercial bushmeat trade hunting, and monitoring populations is critical so that we can inform people and the governments about how to protect them. These data are used to raise funds to introduce and implement conservation measures. Camera traps can continually monitor and help assess demographic populations. And that means like the group composition, how many adults, subadults, births, disappearances, and how often do they give birth. And these are the same things that we can use our cameras with at UBarU. So be keeping these things in mind. Even though I'm talking about primates, I'm talking really about all animals. So this is how I use my camera traps. So I use them to record a specific behavior. And I mentioned to you that I study self-medicative behavior, which is how animals maintain their health. And in addition to medicinal plants, one of the super cool things that many animals, both human and non-human animals, do is eat soil. And not just any old kind of dirt, but really special soil. And so I monitor consumption of soil at these really special places. So this is what's going on in these two pictures. I set up a field experiment. I wanted to know what kind of soil that these animals preferred. And the monkeys that are on the left-hand side, those are black and white colobus, and they consumed almost 10 kilograms of soil in 4 hours. That's a lot. And the one on the right is a East African chimpanzee, and it's a mom, and you can see her little baby on her back. And the other thing we can do is document activity patterns, and kind of keep this in mind because I will bring this up again when I'm showing you pictures from UBarU. So this image, these are really unusual chimpanzees that are in West Africa, and it's super hot there. So this woman, Jill Prutz, is a friend of mine. And so she noticed that the chimpanzees were using this cave, and they were going in the cave to get out of the hot, hot sun. And they also were they see them like in these pools just trying to cool off. So we can document activity patterns and just behavior. So there are lots of different kinds of camera traps, and this is the camera trap that we have. It's a Bushnell, and the technology is really rapidly changing. When I look at my first camera, gosh, these are so much nicer. There's many makes and models. And if you were a researcher, the one you chose would be kind of governed by your budget and how you wanted to use it. And some of the big differences are between its flash and intensity. So camera traps with infrared flash, they take color daytime and monochromatic nighttime photos. That's what we have. While camera traps with white flash take color photos regardless of light levels. So the problem with these white, the cameras with a white flash, it's really bright, and they often, I find them kind of frightening. So I think that you can, if you don't really need to have color images, it's better to have, we have like there's no glow and there's a red glow, and that's the kind that we have. We do get some light in the dark, but it's not so bright that we would scare animals away. And the other thing that if you're thinking about getting a camera trap is that you want to look at how fast does the camera fire. So when it makes a difference for you is, let's say that you want to photograph animals that are fast moving, they're small, and they're solitary. Then you need a camera with a short trigger. If you want to photograph things that are slow moving, they're big animals, they live in a big group, then it's not so important to you. The other thing that can affect your camera is the temperature. And so when it's really cold, cameras can kind of struggle. And they also can struggle a little bit when the temperature of the animal and the temperature of the ambient air is pretty much the same. You'll see information about detection zone, and that's basically how far can you see on the sides and deep. And we can see that in the images that we're taking, like how far we can see from the water trough. Another really important is how big of an SD card that you can put in your camera. My first cameras, I could use a 4 GB SD card. So my troop that I followed was 115 individuals. And so I had to swap out my cards every single day. With this camera trap and these big SD cards, we can go for, gosh, way over, I mean, I've checked them in a month. The batteries are still good. There's plenty of room on the SD card. So there's a lot of capacity for taking pictures and videos. The other thing, I think it's good to kind of help keep people honest. Camera traps are expensive. And so if you have one, it's probably a good idea to secure them. So our camera trap at UBarU, it's like the one on the right. We have a security box that the camera fits inside. And then we have one of these locks. It's called a Python lock. And that's just helping make sure that they stay put. And I'll just mention batteries. So a lot of people think, oh, alkaline battery is a battery, but that's not true. So if the weather is pretty cold, alkaline batteries just charge very quickly. I also find rechargeables don't do well at all. Lithiums do great. In hot weather, rechargeables don't do great. Alkalines do okay, but across the board, lithium batteries work whether it's cold or whether it's hot. And so that's what I recommend, is using lithium batteries. So now we're going to talk a bit about what did our camera trap capture. So we have, I can't tell you the number of deer, but we have a pretty healthy population of deer. And we captured a mama with these 2 fawns. They're really lovely and very curious. So we saw them during the day, and we also captured images of them at night. Texas has 2 kinds of deer, the white-tailed deer and the mule deer, but the only one that we have is the white-tailed deer. And so I don't know if I mentioned to you that camera traps can capture both stills and videos. And so our camera does both. And so here is a little video of our new camera capturing it looks to me like a younger individual that came up for a drink. And then when I was talking about that detection zone, so you can see way in the back, you can see this other deer, which is pretty amazing that a camera could capture that far away and the image is so clear. So that's something I really like about this camera. And we have two kinds of squirrels. So in the summer, I saw this guy quite a lot. It's the rock squirrel, and the other one that we have is the eastern fox squirrel. This one I see still quite a lot. They come very often to get a drink. And here, I want you to pay close attention to their little feet. Um, they're just hanging on by their little toenails to get a drink. For a little while, the water was kind of low. And so a lot of animals struggled a little bit, but there was still water for them, but they're hanging on to get a little drink of water. So these guys come often though. I know they're common, but I still think they're cute. And these guys come often. We have a pretty healthy population of raccoons, and some of them are very chunky. I don't know what all they're eating, but, and we did have a mama, and she had at least, I think, 4 babies. I haven't seen her as much, but here's one of our chunky friends, and he comes often, and it's also, there's 2 of them. So it's sometimes they're by themselves, but also it's with another individual. I love them. I know they're naughty, but I love them. And I know that lots of people don't like wild boar or feral hogs, but we do have some feral hogs. Recent studies indicate that feral hog populations in Texas number about 1.5 million. Feral hogs are domestic hogs that either escaped or were released for hunting purposes. They're omnivorous, meaning that they eat both plant and animal matter, and they are especially fond of acorns. And this is one, so there was earlier in the summer, I could see, I think there must have been like 4 younger ones. And so this one is getting a little bit bigger, but you can still tell they're still quite young. We also have a lot of really nice foxes on the property. I don't know why I say they're nice. I just think they're just lovely to look at. So we see them. I was surprised. I thought that they were mostly active at night, but they're also active during the day. And this is what I was talking about earlier, being able to get information about activity patterns. I've seen that before when people have told me, oh, this animal is only active at night. And then, sure enough, I see them during the day. So believe your own eyes. And if you see an animal active during the day, then they're active during the day. And it could be just something unique to your population, or maybe there's just some misinformation about the animal.
Paula, can I chime in here? I
Yes.
just want to say something. I went to a program here in Dallas that was put on by the Humane Society talking about urban coyotes. And I don't know if coyotes and foxes have similar behaviors, but what I learned was that coyotes prefer to avoid people. So an urban coyote is active at night because that's when they have the best opportunity to avoid people. But out in more rural areas like UBarU, coyotes are usually active in the daytime, just because so much of their food source is active in the daytime also. So that's what I learned, was that it really depends on how many people are around, whether you're active in the day or the night.
That makes sense. And I mean, I think it's really interesting. So when I was mentioned too that I study human wildlife conflict. So for animals, because humans have encroached so much upon wildlife habitat, animals have become very opportunistic, and the ones that are adaptable, that can adapt their diet, adapt their activity patterns, they're the ones that are going to survive. So it's amazing the images that we're seeing, and a lot of that stems from, you know, this adaptability. So Texas has also a couple kinds of foxes, and this is the smallest fox found in Texas. It's about the same size as a house cat, although I think ours looks a little bit bigger than that to me. And they're the only canid that can climb trees. And so here they are coming up for a little drink. And I think I have to, I won't commit to memory, but when you start trying to identify the different kinds of foxes, it's important that white nape around the neck and the dark hair on the back and also on the tail. So those are some of the distinguishing characteristics. I think also, I think there's like a desert fox or something, and the ears are much bigger, but I just think they're beautiful. And we have the 9-banded armadillo. They are the smallest, they're the state small mammal of Texas. Their lifespan is usually 12 to 15 years. And I mentioned this to you all before. And so this is your first pop quiz of the night. Who remembers how many babies that armadillos have? And is there anything unique about them?
About the babies or about armadillos in general?
About the babies. How many babies does an armadillo have? And is there anything, Robin says 4. Robin, what about them? Are they?
They're identical.
You smarty pants. Yay. You get a prize. Yeah, so I just think that's fascinating. They always give birth to 4 identical quadruplets. And this is a very cute video. So this is when the water was just a little bit low, and this little guy was struggling just a little bit. And you can see, you know, again, just like kind of hanging on for dear life to be able to reach the water, and using their tail for some balance. And just, you know, can't quite get there. Whoops. They managed to get out, but very cute. So, and this is going to be your second quiz of the night. I told you that we had previously that we have 2 kinds of lagomorphs. This guy is the black-tailed jackrabbit, and is he a rabbit? Michael West. Is Michael eating?
Well, Linda says, I bet he's a hare.
Linda is right, and she gets a prize.
Good.
Yes. So the jackrabbit is not a rabbit, it is a hare. But we also do have a true rabbit. We have the eastern cottontail. And does anybody remember what's the big thing that's different about them? Linda, do you remember that too?
No, I just know that the hawks have eaten all the cottontails in our neighborhood.
Oh, well,
It's very sad.
That's the circle of life. Everybody's got to eat. And it's a good thing. I mean, at least cottontails, you know, they're very, very prolific breeders. So that's a little bit of a clue. Anybody else remember anything about them? Robin?
I think the hares have fewer offspring, and they hang with them a little while, versus I think the rabbits just kind of have them and don't take care of them very long, and they have a ton of them, and the mortality rate is really high. So the hares like only have a couple babies or something like that.
You have it correct, but flipped. So it's
Really?
the hares. The hares are the one that they don't even have a true nest. So the mother will just sort of like deposit them in these depressions. They can move on their own from the minute they're born. While the rabbits, they need a lot of care. The mother has the big nest. It's lined, and they're blind at birth, and so they require a lot of a lot of care. Hares
So the
don't need a
hares
lot.
just kind of leave them at the fire station.
Absolutely, that's right. All right, so and even the little rabbits come up for drinks. I just thought this was too cute. Everybody needs water.
Do you want to mute us again?
And we have a pretty good population of opossums. And opossums are supposedly active only at night, and they're supposedly solitary animals. But I have to say that we have a big deck on our yard, in our backyard, and I often see opossums during the day, and I often see two of them together. So this is another instance where, don't believe everything you read. And so keep your eyes open. Do you see the same kind of thing at UBarU, or is it like Patricia suggests? Is there something to do with anthropogenic disturbance, presence of humans or absence of humans? Opossums are, sorry?
They're very active in my neighborhood, and they run up and down the fences all day long.
All right. So we need to start taking notes. Urban areas, maybe they are active. There's lots of more opportunities. Interesting. So the thing about them is they are one of the only mammals that routinely eat snakes, including poisonous snakes. Because of their slower metabolism, they're not as susceptible to the venom. They also eat beetles, ants, grasshoppers, grubs, earthworms, lizards, geckos, frogs, fresh carrion, and ticks that carry what for 50 points?
Lyme disease.
Yay, ding, ding, you get a prize, Patricia.
And they're marsupials.
They are.
The only North American marsupial.
I have such smarty pants in my presentation. And this is,
Yes, you do.
I'm lucky. And I love these guys, these ringtails. We don't have a lot of images of them, but I think over time it will be good to see when they come. Is it during the summer months specifically? Do you see any kind of a pattern from when we've had them? I don't have any video of them. And we have the striped skunk. So they have a lifespan of about 2 years in the wild, which I think it seems really short to me, especially considering the fact that they have really few natural enemies.
Paula, I was just about to ask that. What are the skunk's natural enemies?
I think it's mostly humans, just like vehicular accidents. I mean, I think they're hit a lot. It could be some kind of raptors. Michael might be able to chime in on that, but I can't tell you specifically.
I actually don't know, but I'm quite surprised that they only have a 2-year lifespan.
Yeah, me too.
They must reproduce quite a bit to be able to have as many of them for cars to hit and still be quite present. I did have one question. Maybe you haven't gotten that far yet, but have you seen any porcupines?
I have not, although Donnie told me that he has seen them behind the ranch house.
Okay.
So I think that will be really interesting when we have a bio blitz and people are walking around on the property to look for things like that. During a bio blitz, you could take a picture of the quill So when we're wandering and looking, to be looking for things like that, presence of quills, because we should find them if we still have them. He told me that it's been a number of years since he's seen them though. But I didn't
I've
capture
never
any
seen
pictures
one.
of them. Mm-mm.
Getting back to the skunk, I can tell you from personal experience that they have fairly large litters, usually not less than 4. At our old house, they had a remarkable way of getting underneath the grade beam and raising up their skunks underneath the house. So we had to put up with that. Just leave them alone until the babies moved out.
Well, it was
And
funny.
I
Oh,
have a
sorry.
question.
Yes.
I come from kind of a pet oriented mentality, but I love ringtail cats. Is there anything we can do to cultivate them?
Or help them in our
Help them thrive
in our
a
habitat.
natural environment.
I
I
don't
was just
really.
messing up.
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about, to make sure that they're healthy and I think we're doing all of the right things. And I think it just takes time to sort of get an idea of how many we actually have. Um, somebody had told me that they may kind of live out down near the art barn.
Really?
So I think that, what we could potentially do is, do a little bit of research and see, what do they need in terms of a shelter or some kind of a nesting boxes or something like that. I don't know, but I think we're doing all of the right things. We're protecting the space for them. And
At one point, they were nesting in the art barn. We discovered a nest when we were removing some insulation. I was not the person removing it, but I heard about it. And so when we removed the insulation, we actually removed the nest.
Michael, I was there just as the whole thing was happening. I have photographs actually that I took. For whatever reason, the open part of the art barn had insulation in the ceiling, which is sort of ridiculous because
Yes.
if it's open, it doesn't need insulation. But the ringtail had gotten up there between the insulation and the roof, and it made a nest. And I also had pictures
Yeah.
of, as biologists like to call it, scat hanging off of this nest above the art barn, because apparently they're not above pooping where they live, I guess. But
Well, you won't be surprised, but this afternoon we were supposed to have a freeze tonight, and so I was replacing our freeze cloth over the plants on our back deck, and I discovered ringtail scat on our deck.
Really?
Not too many people report finding scat on their deck, but it's public, it's recorded. So
did you put it in iNaturalist?
no.
Some people do.
Well,
I mean, I think it's like it is a way to document presence of an animal. So that's really
Well,
cool. Lucky
I've
you.
never seen anybody get an ID on scat before.
Ugh. I sometimes like what people post, you'd have to be some kind of a biologist or something to, ID some of those things.
Yeah.
So, okay.
what
Well,
a coincidence, Michael. Before you go on, Paula, I just finished a murder mystery that features a game warden as the chief character. And apparently, if you are in Wyoming, there are plenty of places where you can mail off scat and get an identification of what kind of animal left it behind.
That's fabulous. I think I've probably read a couple of her books.
very cool. So for who asked about the natural enemies of skunks, coyotes, foxes, dogs, bobcats, mountain lions, badgers, and big owls can all eat skunks, but rarely do. All right, and so now we're going to move into the bird section. And for people who've been coming to the bird ID, this will be kind of a nice way for you to look at the birds again and see which ones you remember. And, if Michael wants to quiz you, he can do that too. Mostly what we have are songbirds, but not all. So this first one is the northern cardinal, and you can see the male is on the left and the female is on the right. And I just think this is a lovely picture of the.
That's a great shot.
Yeah, and so you can see that fast trigger, you can get some really good pictures like this. And then we have a little video. These guys come pretty often to the water trough. You can see the male on the left and the females further down on the right. And again, keep in mind that detection zone and what a nice camera that we have. This camera also has sound, and you can hear the windmill in the back. Yeah. And we have the lark sparrow. Unlike many songbirds, the lark sparrow walks on the ground rather than hops. And we have another kind of sparrow. We have the house sparrow. And I've told you this before, and I won't quiz you. According to the Handbook of Texas Online, they are known to eat over 830 different foods. So they're another one of those very opportunistic birds. Michael, did you want to say something?
No.
Okay. And then we have the northern mockingbird, and mockingbirds can live up to 20 years in captivity, and a male mockingbird can learn up to 200 different songs.
Including car alarms.
And then we have the Woodhouse's scrub jay. I just think these are stunning birds. And here's a little video of this guy. They come pretty often, and you can see there's two of them. And there are a couple of scrub jays, and this one has that white bar over the eye. So keep in mind that when you're looking at them. There were some other things that were unique about one to the other. My ID was wrong initially, and watch how he's hanging on with his feet.
Last couple of days.
Have I seen our jays? Not today, but in the last week. Oh, that's great.
And I haven't seen these guys for a while. This is the greater roadrunner. The roadrunner nest is made of it. They make them of anything they can find: sticks, snake skins, and leaves. I would be interested to know if these guys are active mostly in the summer or what's the deal with them. So it'll be nice for you to see, what months do you see these birds? And then we've got these wild turkeys. I haven't seen them for a while either. They have between 5,000 and 6,000 feathers. And what I read about them was that they will eat anything that fits into their mouths. And we had a number of both the chicks and the adult females.
So exciting.
And the white-winged dove. And can anybody tell me, what does the call of the white-winged dove, what does it sound like? Anybody remember? Robin?
I'm gonna guess something like cuckoo, cuckoo.
Anybody else?
How about hooroo, hooroo?
Anybody else? Diane, do you know what they say?
No,
They say, what's for breakfast?
Close. They say, who cooks for you? And it's the same thing that the barred owl says. Who cooks for you? And then we've got these cute little black crested titmice. There's another kind of titmouse. This guy is a little bit different, that they've got some kind of a buffy coloration around the beak. I got corrected on that one. And the titmice diet consists of seeds, berries, nuts, insects, and insect eggs. So now we're coming to the interesting part of the talk, where we have mystery birds, and to see if there's anybody who can recognize some of these birds. I've put them into iNaturalist, but people haven't told me that I'm correct or not. So I'm wondering if
Lincoln sparrow?
that's your guess, the Lincoln sparrow?
Well, I
Anybody?
mean, it's just a quick guess.
Okay. I'm not sure. I think it might be the canyon towhee,
Oh, really? Wow.
but I'm not positive. So you all will have to keep an eye out for this little guy. And here's another image of them. And look at this one. So you can see their little feet.
He levitates, it looks like.
Yeah, just jumping up.
It's a Houdini.
Is he coming or going, do you think?
I think he's coming back up from, I think he was getting a sip of water and then he's flying back up. And then we have this guy. What does that look like?
Robin.
Robin to me.
I don't know why they looked a little bit funny to me. Like I've never really noticed that white ring around the eye, but it gives you like a nice opportunity. You know, Michael and I talked about that, looking for different coloration and markings. And so those kinds of things will help you. And also the shape of the feet and the beak. And then we have this little guy, and I'm not exactly sure about this bird. Anybody have any ideas?
Look at the beak.
Kind of a longish tail too.
And they have to me, it looks like they have a little red cap on the top of their head.
Oh, could
Oh,
be
really?
in the collar under the throat.
Anybody?
No, I don't know.
So I'm not positive, but I think it's a rufous crowned sparrow.
Rufous crowned sparrow? Yeah.
Yeah,
could
so
be.
I'll keep you informed when people ID the birds on iNaturalist. These images aren't great, but I think it's enough for somebody who really knows their birds to give me a proper ID. So we have had a few domestic animals visiting the water trough as well. So for a little time this summer, we had a number of our neighbors' goats. Some of them are quite cute, but there were a lot of them. They didn't come very often, but they were there. And we also have this very cute little cat. They come pretty often. And there they go.
What are they doing out there?
Oh,
Fortunately, a few of those cats have been removed.
Rehomed.
Yes, repurposed.
well, especially since they're like one of the big predators for birds. And so this is my last slide. And I know they're not present, but thanks to Donnie and Kevin who keep the water trough filled. Water is life. And I'm going to stop sharing. And then you can ask me, we can just chat if there's any